The smell of her expensive perfume still lingered in the hallway when I realized my marriage was about to become a crime scene. Not the bloody kind, the kind where trust gets murdered in broad daylight and nobody calls the cops. "It's just 2 weeks, Danny," Erica had said that Monday morning, wheeling her designer suitcase toward the door like she was heading to Paris instead of some corporate retreat. "You know how important this promotion is." Yeah, I knew. What I didn't know was that her idea of climbing the corporate ladder involved horizontal activities with her boss. My name's Danny Reeves, and I fix cars for a living." Nothing glamorous about it. Grease under the fingernails, back that aches by Thursday, customers who think I'm trying to scam them when I tell them their transmission's shot. But I'm good at what I do, and I've got a decent shop on Maple Street that keeps us comfortable. Not rich, not poor, just regular folks in a regular suburb where the biggest excitement is usually Mrs. Patterson's cat getting stuck in a tree. Erica, though, she had bigger plans. Marketing manager at Pinnacle Industries, always talking about quarterly reports and strategic initiatives and other corporate buzzwords that made my brain hurt. She'd been working late more often, taking calls in the other room, buying new clothes that never seemed to make it into our bedroom. I figured it was just work stress. Shows what I know. I'll call every night," she promised, giving me one of those quick, distracted kisses that had become her specialty. "Marcus wants the whole team focused, so we might be busy, but I'll make time." Marcus Caldwell, her boss. 42, divorced, drives a BMW that costs more than most people make in a year. I'd met him at a few company parties, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and has opinions about wine. The kind who thinks his money makes him charming instead of just loud. "Sure thing," I said, watching her load the suitcase into her Lexus. "You have fun at your conference." She didn't catch the pause. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. The first few days went exactly like she said they would. Text messages every evening, brief phone calls where she sounded tired and distracted. Day 1. Hotel's nice, long meetings ahead. Day 2. Exhausted. Marcus has us working through dinner. Day 3. Miss you. This place has terrible cell service. By day 4, I was starting to believe maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe she really was buried in spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. Maybe Marcus really was the professional she claimed he was. Then came day 5. Thursday morning, I was getting ready for work when I noticed her iPad sitting on the kitchen counter. She'd been in such a rush Monday that she'd forgotten it. No big deal, except when I moved it to plug in my phone charger. The screen lit up with a notification, a text message from Marcus. "Can't wait for tonight. Room 247 has that champagne you wanted." My blood turned to ice water. I stared at that screen like it might suddenly start making sense, like there might be some innocent explanation for why her boss was talking about champagne in hotel rooms. There wasn't. I opened the Messages app with shaking fingers. Everything was synced from her phone. Every text, every photo, every lie she'd been living for the past week. "The spa appointment is at 2, Marcus had written Tuesday. "Couples massage, just like you wanted," her reply. "Perfect. I told Danny the meetings run late. He has no idea." Wednesday. "This king suite is incredible, worth every penny. I can't believe we waited so long to do this. Danny thinks I'm in conference rooms while I'm falling asleep in your arms." Thursday morning, just an hour before I found the iPad. 2 more days of paradise, then back to pretending. I hate lying to him, but what choice do we have? Soon we won't have to. Once my divorce is final and you figure out your situation, we can stop sneaking around. My situation. Like I was some problem to be solved, some obstacle to be removed. I screenshot everything. Every message, every photo she'd sent him of herself in lingerie I'd never seen. Every detail of their romantic getaway disguised as a business trip. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely work the phone. But I got it all. The Grand View Resort. 4 hours north, right on the lake. The same place we'd talked about going for our anniversary last year before deciding we couldn't afford it. Apparently, we couldn't afford it, but Pinnacle Industries could. That's when I noticed something interesting. Mixed in with all the lovey-dovey messages were expense reports, receipts. Marcus was charging everything to the company card. The suite, the dinners, the spa treatments, even the champagne. He was stealing from his own company to fund his affair with my wife. I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes, just staring at those messages, feeling something cold and sharp growing in my chest. Not just anger, though there was plenty of that. something calculating, something that wanted to see how this little fairy tale of theirs would end when reality came knocking. Erica called that evening, same as always. "How was your day?" she asked, and I could hear laughter in the background, the clink of glasses. "Oh, I said, looking at a photo she'd sent Marcus of herself in a red dress I'd never seen. "Same old thing. How's the conference?" "Boring," she lied smoothly. "Marcus has us reviewing market analysis until midnight. I'm exhausted." "That's too bad." "Well, don't work too hard." "I won't. Love you." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." But I was already making plans. Friday passed in a blur of routine maintenance and oil changes, but my mind was 4 hours north, at a lakeside resort, where my wife was playing house with her boss. Every time a customer asked how I was doing, I wanted to laugh. How was I doing? Well, my marriage was a fraud. My wife thought I was an idiot, and I was planning something that would either be brilliant or land me in jail. Saturday, I told my buddy Rick I needed him to cover the shop for a few hours. "Everything okay?" he asked, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. Rick's been my best friend since high school, the kind of guy who'd help you bury a body and never ask questions. He also happens to be the best mechanic I know, and the only person I trust with my customers. "Just need to take care of something," I said. "Personal business." Rick nodded. He'd noticed I'd been off all week, but he wasn't the type to pry. "Take all the time you need, man. I got this." Sunday morning, I was on the road by 6 a.m. The Grandview Resort's website showed a beautiful lakefront property with a 5-star restaurant and all the amenities 2 cheating hearts could want. Room rates started at $400 a night. For a business conference, Marcus sure had expensive taste. The drive gave me time to think, and the more I thought, the angrier I got. Not just at Erica, though she deserved plenty of it, at myself, for not seeing the signs earlier, for trusting her when every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong, for being the kind of husband who worked 60-hour weeks to keep us comfortable while she was off playing princess with her corporate prince. But mostly, I was angry at how stupid they thought I was. The Grandview Resort was everything the website promised. Sprawling grounds, manicured gardens, the kind of place where they charge $20 for a hamburger and call it artisanal. I parked in the visitor lot and walked into the lobby like I belonged there. Just another guest enjoying a weekend getaway. The restaurant was attached to the main building, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. I got a table in the bar area where I could see the dining room but stay hidden in the shadows. Ordered a beer and some overpriced wings and settled in to wait. I didn't have to wait long. They walked in at 7:30, hand in hand like teenagers. Erica wore a black dress that hugged every curve, her hair done up in some fancy style that probably cost more than I make in a day. Marcus had his arm around her waist, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh. They looked happy. That was the part that hurt most. Not that she was cheating, but that she looked genuinely happy doing it. Happier than I'd seen her in months. The hostess seated them at a corner table, with a perfect view of the sunset. I watched Marcus order wine. Something expensive, judging by how long he spent discussing it with the sommelier. I watched Erica lean across the table to feed him a bite of her appetizer. I watched them hold hands and gaze into each other's eyes, like they were the only two people in the world. And I took pictures of all of it. My phone's camera wasn't great in the dim restaurant lighting, but it was good enough. Good enough to show Erica in that black dress. Good enough to capture Marcus's face. Good enough to prove they were there together. I got shots of them sharing dessert, of Marcus paying with what I was pretty sure was his company credit card, of them walking out together with his hand on the small of her back. And then I got in my car and drove home. 4 hours to think about what I'd seen. 4 hours to let the reality sink in. My wife, the woman I'd been married to for 12 years, the woman who still kissed me goodbye every morning and asked about my day every evening, was living a completely different life, a life where I didn't exist except as an obstacle to be overcome. But here's the thing about obstacles. Sometimes they fight back. Monday morning, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and Erica's iPad, building a case like I was preparing for trial. Every text message, every photo, every receipt, I organized it all into a neat little package that told the story of two people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. The expense reports were particularly interesting. Marcus had been charging personal expenses to the company for months, not just this trip. Dinners at expensive restaurants on nights I remembered Erica coming home late. Hotel rooms in the city when she claimed to be working overnight on projects. Even shopping trips. I found receipts for jewelry and clothes that had somehow never made it home. Pinnacle Industries was funding their entire affair, and they were too drunk on each other to cover their tracks properly. I made copies of everything, printed the most damning photos, and put together a file that would make any HR department's blood run cold. Then I sat back and considered my options. I could confront Erica directly, but that would just give her time to spin some story, to make excuses, to turn it around on me somehow. I could call Marcus, but what was the point? He'd just deny everything or hang up. No, this called for something more elegant. Something that would let them know exactly how stupid they'd been, while making sure they faced real consequences for their actions. Pinnacle Industries had a website with contact information for various departments, including human resources. I crafted an email that was professional, concerned, and completely anonymous. To whom it may concern, I feel obligated to report what appears to be misuse of company funds by Marcus Caldwell, VP of Marketing. I have evidence that Mr. Caldwell has been using his corporate credit card for personal expenses, including romantic getaways with a subordinate employee. Please find attached documentation supporting these claims. A concerned employee. I attached everything. The expense reports, the photos from the restaurant, screenshots of text messages discussing company-funded spa treatments and champagne. Enough evidence to bury them both. Then I hit send and sat back to wait. Erica called that evening, same as always. "How's the conference going?" I asked, stirring pasta sauce and trying to keep my voice casual. "Oh, you know how it is," she said. "Marcus has us working around the clock. I'm barely keeping up." In the background, I could hear what sounded like jazz music and clinking glasses. Real hard work, that conference. "Well, don't push yourself too hard," I said. "You've got to come home eventually." 2 more days, she said. "Then things can get back to normal." Normal, right. Tuesday passed quietly. I worked on a transmission rebuild, helped Mrs. Patterson get her ancient Buick running again, and tried not to think about what was happening 4 hours north. Rick kept giving me worried looks, but I just told him I had a lot on my mind, which was true. I had revenge on my mind, and it was a beautiful thing. Wednesday evening, Erica called sounding stressed. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just tired," she said, but there was something in her voice, something that hadn't been there before. "This whole thing is more complicated than we expected." "Work usually is," I said. "That's why they call it work." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Yeah, listen, I might be a little hard to reach tomorrow. We've got some intensive sessions planned." "No problem," I said. "Take your time." Thursday, she didn't call at all. Friday morning, I was under the hood of a Ford pickup when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something told me to answer it. "Hello," I said, wiping grease off my hands. "Is this Danny Reeves?" The voice was shaky, stressed, male. "Depends who's asking. This is Marcus Caldwell. I need to talk to you about your wife." I almost laughed. After everything I'd been through this week, Marcus was calling me? This was rich. "What about her?" I asked, playing dumb. "Look, I don't know how to say this, but we're in trouble here. Corporate security showed up this morning, asking questions about expense reports, about personal use of company funds. They mentioned your name specifically." "My name? Why would they mention my name?" "They said someone reported us. Someone who knew details about the conference. They're saying fraud, Danny. They're talking about pressing charges." I let the silence stretch out, let him sweat. "I don't understand," I finally said. "What does this have to do with me? Did you report us to HR?" "Report you for what?" Another pause. I could practically hear him thinking, trying to figure out how much I knew. "Danny, I need you to know that nothing inappropriate happened between me and Erica. This is all a misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "The expense reports, the hotel rooms. It's all legitimate business expenses. But someone's trying to make it look like something else. And what would that something else be?" Silence. "Marcus, you still there?" "Look," he said, his voice cracking. "I know how this looks, but you have to believe me. Your wife is a professional. We're both professionals. This is just business." "Business," I repeated. "Right. So when you texted her about champagne in room 247, that was business?" Dead silence. "When you booked couples massages at the spa, that was business too?" When you told her you couldn't wait for your divorce to be final so you could stop sneaking around, was that a business decision?" "Danny, I can explain." "No need," I said. I think I understand perfectly. You've been using company money to fund your affair with my wife, and now you're in trouble for it. That about sum it up? Please, he said, and now he sounded desperate. You don't understand. If this gets out, we're both finished. Erica could go to jail. Erica's a grown woman, I said. She made her choices. But you could fix this. You could call them, tell them it was a mistake. Why would I do that? Because she's your wife. Yeah, I said. She is, and you're her boss. And you've both been lying to me for months, while stealing from your company, to pay for your little love nest. Tell me again why I should help you. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want? He finally asked. I want you to face the consequences of your actions, I said. Both of you. Danny, please. I hung up. 5 minutes later, Erica called. Danny, what did you do? She was crying, her voice high and panicked. I exposed your business trip, I said calmly. You're destroying my life. No, sweetheart, you destroyed our marriage. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Please, you have to call them back. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you were wrong. But I wasn't wrong, was I? She sobbed into the phone. I can explain everything. Can you explain the text messages, the photos, the expense reports? Can you explain why you've been stealing from your company to pay for your affair? It wasn't stealing. What would you call it? We were going to pay it back. With what money? Your salary? His alimony payments? Another sob. How long have you known? Since Thursday. Found your iPad. Saw everything. Drove up Sunday and watched you two playing house at the Grandview Resort. Nice dress, by the way. The black one. I'd never seen it before. Oh, God. Yeah, I imagine he's not too happy about this either. Danny, please. I love you. It was just a mistake. Mistake? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A mistake is forgetting to put gas in the car. A mistake is burning dinner. Having a months-long affair while stealing from your company? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. A lot of choices. What do you want me to do? I want you to come home and face what you've done. I want you to tell me the truth for once in your life. And I want you to understand that our marriage is over. No, please. Divorce papers are already being filed, I said. Adultery and fraud. Should make for interesting reading. She was crying harder now. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Danny. I hung up. An hour later, Marcus called back. They fired us, he said, his voice flat. Both of us. Security escorted us out. They're pressing charges. That's between you and the law, I said. Why did you do this? Because you thought I was stupid, I said. Because you thought you could steal my wife and my dignity, and I'd never figure it out. Because you were wrong. This will ruin us both. Should have thought of that before you started playing house with company money. What about Erica? She's facing criminal charges because of you. She's facing criminal charges because she committed crimes. I just made sure someone found out about it. He hung up without another word. Saturday morning, I changed the locks on the house. Not out of spite, well, not entirely out of spite, but because I didn't trust Erica not to come back and destroy evidence or take things that weren't hers. I packed her clothes, her jewelry, her books, everything that belonged to her, and put it all in boxes on the front porch. Mrs. Patterson from next door came over while I was loading the last box. Everything all right, Danny? She asked, eyeing the boxes with curiosity. Erica and I are getting divorced, I said. No point in hiding it. The whole neighborhood would know soon enough. Oh my, I'm so sorry to hear that. Don't be, I said. Sometimes things just don't work out. She nodded sympathetically and went back to her garden, but I could see her watching from behind her tomato plants. By evening, every neighbor on the street would know my business. Small towns are like that. Sunday afternoon, a police car pulled up in front of the house. My heart jumped for a second. Had Marcus or Erica tried to press charges against me somehow? But the officer who got out was young and looked bored, like this was just another routine call. Erica got out of the passenger side. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red from crying. She'd aged 10 years in the past week. Ma'am, you have 30 minutes to collect your belongings, the officer said. Your husband has every right to change the locks on his own property. These are my things, she said, looking at the boxes on the porch. Then I guess you're all set, I said from the doorway. She looked at me with something between anger and desperation. Can we talk, please? Just for a few minutes? We can talk right here, I said. With officer? I looked at the cop. Martinez, he said, with Officer Martinez as a witness. That way there's no confusion about what gets said. Erica's face crumpled. Danny, please, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through this. Work through what? The lying? The cheating? The stealing? I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, for months. You made a choice every single day to lie to me, to betray me, to steal from your company, to fund your little fantasy. Those weren't accidents, Erica. Those were decisions. I know, but nothing. You got caught. That's the only thing you're sorry about. She started crying again. Where am I supposed to go? They froze my bank accounts. I can't afford a lawyer. I might go to jail. You should have thought about that before you decided to commit fraud. I'm your wife. No, I said. You were my wife. Now you're just someone I used to know who happens to share my last name, for now. Officer Martinez cleared his throat. Ma'am, you need to collect your things and go. I can't let this drag on all day. Erica loaded the boxes into a taxi that had been waiting at the curb. She kept looking back at me like she expected me to change my mind, to forgive her, to make this all go away somehow. But I didn't. I just stood in the doorway and watched her load up the pieces of her old life and drive away. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and phone calls. The divorce was straightforward. Adultery is adultery, and I had plenty of evidence. Erica couldn't afford to contest it, and her lawyer advised her to accept my terms rather than drag it out and make things worse for herself. The criminal case was more complicated. Pinnacle Industries was pressing charges for fraud, embezzlement, and misuse of corporate funds. The amounts were significant, tens of thousands of dollars over several months. Marcus was trying to pin everything on Erica, claiming she seduced him and manipulated him into the scheme. Erica was claiming it was all Marcus's idea, and she just went along with it. Neither story was particularly believable. I testified in both cases, laying out exactly how I'd discovered the affair and the financial fraud. The prosecutor called me a concerned citizen who did his civic duty. The defense attorneys called me a vengeful husband who destroyed 2 lives out of spite. I called myself satisfied. The trial made the local news. Corporate executives charged in fraud scheme. Affair leads to embezzlement charges. Local man exposes wife's corporate crime spree. That last headline made me sound like some kind of detective, instead of just a mechanic who got tired of being lied to. Marcus got 3 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. His ex-wife took everything else in their divorce settlement. Last I heard, he was working in the prison laundry and writing letters to anyone who would listen, claiming he was innocent. Erica got 2 years and $50,000 in fines. She served 18 months, got out on good behavior. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to another state, got a job waiting tables at a diner. Her corporate career was over. No company would hire someone with a fraud conviction. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel bad about that. If maybe I'd gone too far, been too harsh, destroyed her life over a mistake. Then I'd remember the text messages, the lies, the months of betrayal. The way she looked at Marcus in that restaurant, happier than she'd looked with me in years. And I'd remember that I didn't destroy her life. She did that all by herself. I just made sure she faced the consequences. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was working late at the shop when someone knocked on the front door. It was after hours, but I could see a woman's silhouette through the frosted glass. I opened the door to find a brunette in her 30s, professionally dressed, but not corporate stuffy. She had kind eyes and a nervous smile. Mr. Reeves? I'm sorry to bother you so late. I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions about the Pinnacle Industries case. I already testified, I said. It's all public record. I know, but I'm working on a follow-up story about corporate fraud and how regular people can spot the warning signs. Your case is really interesting because you weren't a whistleblower in the traditional sense. You were just a husband who paid attention. I considered turning her away, but something about her seemed genuine, not like the other reporters who'd tried to sensationalize the story. All right, I said, but not here. There's a diner down the street. Buy me coffee and I'll tell you whatever you want to know. We talked for 2 hours. She asked good questions, listened to the answers, didn't try to make me into some kind of hero or villain. Just a guy who'd been lied to and decided to do something about it. Do you regret it? She asked as we were wrapping up. Exposing them, I mean. Knowing how it all turned out? I thought about it. I regret that it was necessary, I said. I regret that my wife thought so little of me that she figured I'd never catch on. I regret that she threw away 12 years of marriage for some corporate smooth talker who dumped her the second things got difficult. But do I regret exposing them? No. They made their choices. I just made sure those choices had consequences. That's a very mature way to look at it. I'm a simple guy, I said. I fix things for a living. Sometimes that means rebuilding an engine. Sometimes it means rebuilding a life. She smiled. Can I quote you on that? Sure. The story ran the following week. Local mechanic exposes corporate fraud. Sometimes you have to rebuild your life. It was fair, accurate, and made me sound like a reasonable human being instead of a vengeful ex-husband. Jennifer called a few days later to thank me for the interview. Would you like to get dinner sometime? She asked. Not for a story, just dinner. I thought about it. It had been over a year since Erica left. The divorce was final, the criminal cases were closed, and I was ready to start thinking about the future instead of dwelling on the past. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We had dinner the next Friday, then the Friday after that. Jennifer was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest. She didn't play games, didn't lie about where she was going or who she was with. After months of deception and betrayal, her straightforwardness was like cool water in the desert. 6 months later, she moved in with me. A year after that, I proposed. We got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with Rick as my best man and Jennifer's sister as her maid of honor. No big reception, no fancy venue, no corporate credit cards involved. Just two people who'd found each other and decided to build something real together. 3 years after Erica's sentencing, I was closing up the shop when a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. A beat-up Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a muffler that needed work. Erica got out. She looked older, tired, but healthier somehow. Prison had been hard on her, but it had also stripped away the corporate polish, the fake smile, the carefully constructed image she'd worn like armor. What was left was more human, more real. "Hello, Danny," she said. "Erica." I didn't move from the doorway. "What do you want?" "My car's making a noise, grinding sound when I brake. I know it's probably awkward, but you're the only mechanic I trust." I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, she still trusted me to fix her car. "I can recommend someone else," I said. "Johnson's Auto Repair on 5th Street. Good work, fair prices." She nodded, but didn't move toward her car. "How are you doing?" "I'm good. Married again. Happy." Something flickered across her face. Sadness, maybe, or regret. "I heard. Jennifer seems nice." "She is." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. "Danny, I know this doesn't mean much now, but I'm sorry. For all of it. For lying to you. For betraying you. For throwing away what we had. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to make up for." "You're right," I said. "It doesn't mean much now." She flinched, but nodded. "I know. I wanted you to know that I understand what I did, what I lost." Prison gives you a lot of time to think. And what did you think about? About how good I had it with you. About how you never lied to me, never cheated on me, never made me wonder where I stood. About how I threw all that away for someone who abandoned me the second things got difficult. Marcus, he testified against me, you know, at my sentencing hearing. Said I was the mastermind, that I manipulated him into the whole scheme. His lawyer painted me as some kind of femme fatale who seduced an innocent executive into a life of crime. I'd heard about that. It was one of the reasons her sentence had been harsher than expected. "I'm sorry that happened," I said, and meant it. Whatever else Erica had done, she didn't deserve to be thrown under the bus by her co-conspirator. "It's what I deserved," she said. "Not from him, but from the universe. I made my choices. I hurt people. I broke the law. The consequences were mine to face." She was quiet for a moment, then looked up at me, with eyes that were clearer than I'd seen them in years. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I don't even think I deserve it. But I wanted you to know that what happened to us, that was on me, all of it. You were a good husband, and I was a terrible wife, and I'm sorry." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, of the old Erica, who could lie as easily as breathing. But all I saw was exhaustion and genuine remorse. "Thank you," I said, "for saying that." She nodded and turned back toward her car. Erica." She stopped. "Johnson's Auto Repair. Tell him I sent you. He'll take care of you." She smiled. A real smile, not the corporate one I remembered. "Thank you, Danny, for everything." She got in her car and drove away. the grinding brakes echoing in the evening air. I watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner, then locked up the shop and went home to my wife. 5 years later, I was teaching my stepson how to change oil when the phone rang. Jennifer answered it in the kitchen, and I could hear her talking to someone in her professional voice, probably work. "Danny," she called. "Phone's for you. Says it's about the Pinnacle Industries case." I wiped my hands and took the phone. "This is Danny. Mr. Reeves. This is Detective Sarah Chen with the State Attorney's Office. I'm calling about Marcus Caldwell." My blood went cold. "What about him?" "He was released from prison last month. Yesterday he was found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide. He left a note." I sat down hard in the kitchen chair. "Okay. The note mentions you specifically. Nothing threatening," she added quickly. "But he talks about the case, about what happened. I wanted to let you know in case any reporters contact you." "What did the note say?" "I can't give you specifics, but the general theme was remorse. He took full responsibility for what happened. Apologized to you and your ex-wife. Said he couldn't live with the guilt anymore." I thought about the man who'd called me that Friday morning 3 years ago, panicked and desperate, begging me to fix what he'd broken. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "Are you okay, Mr. Reeves? I know this must be difficult." "I'm fine," I said. "Sad, but fine. Nobody deserved to die over this." After I hung up, Jennifer came over and put her arms around me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking about how different things could have been, for all of us." "Regrets?" I thought about the pain and betrayal and anger that had consumed me that week when I discovered the truth. About the choices I'd made and the consequences that followed. About Erica and her beat-up Honda, apologizing for mistakes she couldn't undo. About Marcus, alone in a prison cell, and then alone in an apartment, carrying guilt he couldn't bear. "No," I said. "No regrets, just sadness for what we all lost." That night I lay in bed thinking about day 9. The day Marcus called me, his voice cracking with panic. "Get to the lobby now. Corporate security is here. They're asking about your husband." It had been the beginning of